Warning, this podcast may cause spontaneous empire building and analogy to boring wedding advice.
Side effects may include increased confidence, uncontrollable cackling, and deleting your Canva templates out of shame.
We've seen it all. Ghosting clients, rain-soaked ceremonies, and that one groomsman who thought he was Beyonce.
And you know what? Somehow we're still here, thriving, slaying, and spreadsheeting. This is Wedding Empires.
Let's go.
Welcome back to Wedding Empires. I'm your host, Jack Bowie, and I'm thrilled to be joining you today with a very special guest all the way from Dallas, Fort Worth. Her name is Andrea Cole, and Andrea has a really interesting business. I've not come across a business like this in the wedding space, so I'm really excited to spend this time with her and explore her business, which is in the space of flower preservation, and get some insight into WIPA. Right? Now, for those of you like me in Australia, no, it's not FITZY and WIPA. It stands for the Wedding Industry Professionals Association. And Andrea runs a branch for WIPA in Dallas, Fort Worth. So we're going to talk about all of that as well. And I guess how those things combine so she can lead with passion and purpose and, create a wedding empire. So Andrea, so lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Let's start with the business. It's called DB Andrea, and all I know is flower preservation. So tell me, I guess, how does this work?
Yes, of course. Well, if you have not heard of flower preservation, I actually have a piece here to show you. These were some of my anniversary flowers. So as you can see, it's a block that looks very similar to almost like glass, but it's not. It's a little bit less heavy, but it's plastic. It's a hard plastic, and you can capture your amazing wedding flowers basically forever as a piece of art.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So yes, we have a lot of different shapes and sizes. We even do pressed flowers, kind of like what you can see back in the background. So the way it works is how it sounds, right? Preserving the essence of the flower forever. So there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of easy ways to do it. There's a lot of hard ways to do it. But the essence, and again, the goal is to preserve the flowers from our brides just so they can get a piece of art forever.
I love that. And how did you come up with this idea? Like, what led you to do this?
So it was kind of like by accident. I was actually in the library and I saw a book, and it was actually my husband's, and I opened it and there was a huge pansy that was entirely flat, entirely brown, that had been preserved for about 3 decades. So his grandmother actually used to press flowers in books. And I just had no idea that you could do this. Apparently here in the United States, some people are taught that through school. I grew up in Mexico, so I had no idea that was a thing. After a few months, he gifted me a beautiful bouquet of flowers for Valentine's. And obviously, I wanted to preserve them, especially since I've always considered very artistic myself. So I basically got to work and started pressing flowers. A little after, I was able to put some coasters together and just like a beautiful picture, a mini picture of, like some fashion sketches with the dresses that were actual flowers. And again, it was kind of like an accident. I was just, being creative, being myself, and it kind of like took off from there. It's crazy.
So can I ask how it works? Like what's inside that glass, whatever it is?
So there's, as I mentioned earlier, there's different types of preservation. This is called resin. So basically resin, it's 2 different compounds that you mix together. So it's kind of like liquid, but they're very thick. You mix them together and it hardens. There's obviously, it's chemistry, right? So you have to be very careful on the timing or your temperature, your humidity levels, and so on. So it's kind of like an experiment in the beginning. Once you nail it down, you just have to basically repeat everything that's worked for you, but it hardens into this plastic. So again, you can kind of like hear that is not glass. It's just a really hard plastic.
Beautiful. Okay. So a fun thing to do that you clearly enjoy. How did you turn that into a business?
Well, so as I mentioned, I kind of just started doing a little bit of like pieces for myself. And actually my husband was the one who came home once and he was like, you could sell that. I'm like, who's gonna buy a little something out of flowers that you gave me, right? But as I mentioned, I put it basically on Facebook, and a lot of my friends and family started inquiring about doing something with their flowers. And I kind of like started just selling pieces of art. It wasn't, I actually went to a lot of markets, like the farmers market and so on, just for selling pieces that I have made. And I just couldn't believe that people would be interested in buying something that I had so much fun creating.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until a little bit after, like a few months after all of this happened, that somebody contacted me to preserve their bridal bouquet. Of course, in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, people are getting married year round. If I can find a way for people that are in Dallas to find me, and of course, like anywhere else from the United States, if they can ship their flowers to me, if I can preserve their flowers, they're gonna really want to pay for this, because now
Yeah.
it's not just random flowers that I picked in my garden or my husband gave me. These are your flowers.
I love it. I'm kind of wishing that I had your details earlier.
I know.
I'm on to husband number 3, so I've had a few bouquets that I would have liked to
Well,
have
hopefully
saved.
there's no number 4, but if there is, I will.
If there is, I'll let you know. Yes, I'll have you on speed dial already. This is great. And is it something that you like? Did you dabble with Etsy as well? Is that a space that you sort of played in? Yeah,
Yes.
I imagine it would be huge on that.
Yes, I'm no. I mean, I'm on Etsy, but Etsy's certainly not where I sell my stuff anymore. I feel like it's a great tool for you to get started for sure. And I used to sell a lot there. So I used to sell a lot in person. I used to sell on my website, and again, Etsy. I just don't use it as much anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about how you've advertised your business and you've attracted these couples. What was your strategy and what's worked and not worked for you?
So in the very beginning, Etsy, Etsy is a great platform for beginners. I think more likely. I would say that social media was really nice to me back in the day when I started. I started pressing flowers in 2016, and
Mhm.
the algorithm is not what it is now. You would just, the more you post, the more you would get traction. People would definitely see. I mean, it was like a timeline. Do you remember that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You posted at the right time. Everybody would see it. And so
Yeah.
I would say I was very lucky to be able to start when the reach was great. And I just started spending a lot of time on Instagram and reaching out to people like that. And again, I had different markets where I was actually meeting with people one on one, even if they were not getting married. Most people know somebody who's getting married, somebody who has passed away, because we obviously do any kind of flowers. From weddings to memorials to anniversary and so on. So Instagram, I would say, was probably the best way for me to start. Right now, we're doing, of course, Instagram ads, social media ads, and of course, as you mentioned earlier, WIPA. Like there's a lot of networking that needs to happen, especially in the wedding industry, because it's all about relationships.
Well, why don't we talk about WIPA? What is it first?
So WIPA, as you mentioned, is Wedding Industry Professionals Association here in the United States. Basically, it's like a group where people are members and they pay a fee yearly, and they get to go to all the events that the WIPA board produces for everybody, right? So they are able to learn a lot. There's a lot of experimental classes, and then classes, and then obviously a lot of inspiration as well, because the board is producing the best of the best. They are bringing in the best partners within each city or each chapter. And again, it's just a fabulous event. And typically they have guest speakers, designers, all kinds of different partners. So this organization is, I would say, one of the best in the United States. And we have 22 chapters. So every major city has its chapter. So if you're a member, you can actually attend any of the chapters, not only your cities. So if you are a photographer that travel a lot, you can go to New York and attend their events and so on. And again, New York, for instance, I so wish that I had attended this event, but they partner with Kleinfelds. So they were at their location just teaching people about wedding dresses and whatnot, So it's very important if you're in the wedding industry to network way more than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
My first years, I would say, I was just laser focused on growing my business, especially across the United States, that I just didn't have time to go to events. And to me, it almost felt like I was cheating, to go to a networking event and be mingling with a cocktail in your hand. I don't have time for that, right? But again, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just so wish that I had started sooner.
Absolutely. I'm a former business owner of a business networking brand, so I'm very big on business networking. Yeah, wow. Maybe I should start a chapter of WIPA in Australia. I think that that's something that it's incredible. I went to one wedding networking event in a previous city that I lived in, and it was put on by a group of celebrants that had sort of come together and created this celebrant collective, and they organised this one-off event. And I tell you what, there were celebrants that got up and sort of spoke at that event that I booked and booked and booked and booked as a wedding planner, not having seen them at a wedding, but just met them that night and created that connection. So I think you're right. Like I think, yes, we build our connections when we attend a wedding and somebody does a great job and we make that connection on the job. But you know, this is just another way to do that, right? It's another way to get that connection. And there's nothing more powerful than a wedding professional saying to a couple, I personally love this person, you know, that sort of referral, you know, you just.
And something to keep in mind is somebody like me, I don't go to the weddings, you know, I'm a post-wedding kind of. There's a lot of like the invitations and all the stationery. They don't get to see the bride and the groom. They don't get to meet them sometimes.
Yeah,
you know, they
true.
So all of these vendors that they don't even get to interact with each other, it's a perfect place for them to start meeting people, because at the end, I mean, referrals is, as you mentioned, is like the best type of marketing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about your journey with WIPA. You started as a member, but now you're running a chapter. How does that work for you, and how's that helped your business?
Yes. So a couple of my friends, makeup artist actually was the very first one who told me about WIPA. And again, she's there, yes, the day off, but she doesn't get to interact with a lot of people. So she highly suggested that I looked into different organizations, and she recommended to start with WIPA because it's the biggest one, the best one. And again, they have different chapters. So I decided, and again, this is back when I was like, I guess I'll just try it. I don't know about networking and going to events, you know, and kind of like wasting time. So I basically joined as a member, and I went to 2 events. And my logic was, if I go to 2 events only and get somebody to refer my business, it's going to pay off, right?
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
can't look at it that way. It's not going into an organization like this should not be considered a marketing tool. So should be considered a branding tool. You are there to represent your brand and yourself as the brand, and it's all about connections. So you're not there just to like thinking like, oh, you're gonna like, how can I push my product in your face? Because you definitely don't want to do that, right? That is just not the best way to network whatsoever. The best way to see it is, what can I do for you? Who can I connect you with? And then that naturally is going to basically transform into a good relationship, number one. Number two, somebody is going to trust you. And then if they're interested in you, then they're going to ask questions about you. And honestly, you just face off. So after my first year, again, kind of like that was my logic, I realized that it was more about serving more than about pushing your products and service. And so it was at that time that I said, you know what? I want to be on the board. So I run their marketing and communications in the Dallas chapter, because again, I felt as though if I serve, you know, and serve and serve and serve, eventually people are going to ask who I am, you know, but it's not, you can't just go to, like, since I run their socials, I can't just go to their socials and just post about my company. You can't do that, right? So again, it's really just about serving and making the right connections.
Yeah, I agree. When I had my business in heels, it was, you go to give, not go to get.
Yes.
And yeah, if everyone buys into that, it's, you know, it's incredible. Fantastic. Okay. So how do you juggle it all? Like, I'm hearing, you know, there's this community leadership, there's your own business, and your mom, like what else is thrown into the mix?
You know, it's funny. It's funny that you asked that, because in the beginning of the year, which is when I joined, I had just come back from Miss America. I don't know if you're familiar with Miss America or not.
Yeah.
So we are the official partner. And so the actual competition was in Orlando, Florida, which is, I mean, like 3 hours on a flight, right? So I came back after the competition and just winding down. And then I took over this position right away. And so I had no idea what the position really was like. So it's a lot of work. So I started spending about, I kid you not, like about probably like part-time. It was a part-time job, and it's not paid. And you still have to buy your tickets, you know? So like we came to, like, we were actually organizing one of the biggest events of the year, like shortly after. So I I was this close to tell the president, like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I have my own company to run, But again, obviously, like, I mean, as anything else, like after you're repeating your work, you understand, like the pace of it and what needs from, what you need to do for it, just to make sure that you're doing the right thing. But I do have a team. I have a team of 10 people. Our core team is 10 people. We sometimes even hire more people when it gets busy, and I could not do it without them, to be honest.
Excellent. Okay. And how do you, I mean, I know that you're interested in really building a legacy with your brand. So let's talk about how, you've stayed true to that. You haven't kind of gone with the trends, and, you're building something that will last.
That is also a very interesting topic to me, because I grew my social media before Reels were a thing. And in fact, I am ashamed, I think, to say that none of my videos have gone viral. Like, not a single one of them. And, don't get me wrong, flower preservation has existed for centuries, but I really do believe that we were kind of like the first firm or studio to really like start hiring people, start getting bouquets from across the country. And right now we have a lot of competitors, and a lot of those competitors have been super successful with, Reels and TikTok, that their business just like, I mean, it's doing amazing. And to me, I just have not realized how to gone viral, And for the longest time, I was just like, oh my God, I just can't believe, we're trying and trying and trying. And then I realized that it's really not about the followers. Are the followers really translating to sales? A lot of times that's not the case, right? So instead of actually obsessing and, trying to figure out why my videos have not gone viral, we were just really honing into getting the best customer service for our clients and making sure that our brand is noticed because of its quality. So really all the efforts, and instead of investing them in trends, which you're never going to see me, lip sync and dance in front of a piece. I'm never going to do that. Personality would, and if it's yours, perfectly fine, but it needs to feel true to yourself, because at the end, building a brand is a legacy, right? And years after, like, you need to look back at your brand 10 years after and say, that is who I am right now. Of course, you've changed, but always you need to be proud of, I have been always true to myself,
Yeah. I love that. Now, if Ben was here, he has a last question that he likes to ask, so I'll do it in his honor. Andrea, if you walked down the street and ran into a former version of yourself at 18, what advice would you give to that version of yourself?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, just stop, stare, appreciate, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're growing, and, first of all, growth is not always linear, and it's so easy for you to, like, again, lose followers or start comparing yourself to others and just not be content. Like, it's so easy. I mean, you reach a goal and you're just not like, oh, okay, I made it. You're always looking for more and more. It just never ends, especially the more grit you have, which I happen to have a lot. And it can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? So if I could look back at myself at 18, I would say, look where you are, like, look what you built. I feel like my 18-year-old will be so freaking proud of where we stand today. And again, I have a really hard time pausing and appreciating what I've done.
I love that. Okay. That was great. So if you're out there and you'd like to get to know Andrea and her business and suss out these beautiful flowers, her website is DB Andrea, so DBANDREA.com. You'll also find her on LinkedIn, Instagram, and on Facebook. Now, how can people become a member with WIPA?
So you can go to WIPA.org and just join that way. If you're in Dallas-Fort Worth, please reach out to me, because I would love to meet you and introduce you to a lot of our team. I mean, they're fantastic. And again, there's 22 chapters, so I really hope that we can meet some people that way.
That sounds amazing. Andrea, thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely spending this time with you, and I'm sure we'll chat again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
If you made it this far, congrats. You've got great taste and you've probably got cool hair.
Want to go pro without the burnout, the guesswork, or the TikTok hacks from Karen in Ohio?
We've got you. The Wedding Academy is your backstage pass to a smarter and sassier wedding biz.
Use the code PODCAST for 5% off at weddingacademyglobal.com.
And don't forget to subscribe.